There are, as you know, two infancy narratives in the New Testament, Luke's and Matthew's. And Luke's infancy narrative focuses on Mary. Matthew's infancy narratives focus on Joseph. So let's talk about Joseph. Joseph was described as a just man, which doesn't mean that he, had good contracts. It meant that he lived by the law of God in the Hebrew Scriptures. He lived according to the books of Moses. He lived according to the fidelity that was owed him in terms of temple worship, in terms of regular attendance at synagogue, in terms of the way in which he conducted his affairs. He was a good, faithful, practicing Jew. And he had a beautiful wife that he was engaged to. In those days, people were engaged pretty early in life. Life expectancy wasn't too long, so they engaged quite early, 13, 14. Probably Mary was not more than that. Hard to know how old Joseph was. And betrothal was a pretty legal thing. It wasn't just, a star-studded night and a proposal. It was had a legal significance. They were betrothed legally in terms of the Hebrew understanding. They continued to live with their parents usually for a while, and then eventually the bride came and lived in the husband's home. And this was all set. Joseph was set, had a beautiful wife, and was betrothed, had every expectation of bringing her to live with him in his home. And lo and behold, she comes up pregnant. Imagine what that did to him. We have the benefit of 2,000 years of Christian tradition. Joseph didn't. He just had this difficult, now what do I do? The penalty in the Hebrew Scriptures in Deuteronomy was this person's supposed to be stoned outside her father's house by the villagers. Joseph didn't want any part of that. And he also knew Mary to be this beautiful, holy person. How can this be? We have no record of their conversations, but they must have been something. And eventually Joseph decided, I'm just going to quietly end the betrothal, get rid of the legal document. And had decided to do that quietly so that there would be no embarrassment, no scandal. Mary would not be dismissed in her community. That's what he had finally decided to do, agonizingly decided to do. Felt required to do by the Hebrew law. But God intervened and told Joseph, this is not your doing, this is my doing. So the key word, do not be afraid. Do not worry about scandal. Do not worry about what anybody says. Do not be afraid to take Mary into your home. And Joseph, because he had a lifetime of listening to the Lord, of following the way of the Lord in his daily life, he was able to, in faith, respond to the Lord. Did he understand it? Certainly not. Did he know where this was going to go? Had no idea. What this was going to involve, who knows? But it's God's plan. God invites me into it. God calls me to do this. I do it in faith. And he took Mary into his home, legally Jesus was his son, and therefore son of David, because Jesus got his son of David status through Joseph, not through Mary, and became the father of Jesus. In our lives, presumably, we are trying to be faithful followers of the Lord. And we think we know what that means. But every once in a while, life throws us a curveball. Something we do not understand, do not expect, do not have in our focus. It too is a call of the Lord for us. And how do we respond when that happens? When the confusing thing happens, the improbable thing happens, the surprise thing happens, the major question emerges in our lives, in our hearts. How do we respond then? Do we respond also with faith? Trusting that the Lord is here in this, the Lord is here with us. Do we hear the Lord's words to us? Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You are always in my hands. You are always in my heart. I am never going to abandon you. I come, Emmanuel, God with us. So we have a model in Joseph, a model of daily fidelity, but also a model of fidelity in the surprising times, in the confusing times, in the hurting times. To respond in faith as God invites us, as God calls us, as we hear the main words of the Lord. Do not be afraid. Come, come.